Welcome, class, to the study of the book of Job. And today we're going to look at chapter 31. We are, of course, in a section that represents Job's last stand. Chapters 29, 30, and 31 represents Job's last stand. If you read, and I hope you read, chapter 29 in English, we see that in chapter 29, Job is going to look back. He's going to look back to the good life that he had. One poet puts it like this, William Cooper puts it like this, looking back to his life, he says, "Where is the blessedness I knew when first I saw the Lord? What peaceful hours I once enjoyed, how sweet their memories still. But they have left an aching void the world can never fill." So, in a similar way, Job recalls the earlier days when he used to be good, when he helped the poor, when he helped the fatherless, when he was respected, when he was a great man. So this is what is happening in chapter 29, is Job looking back at the blessed life that he had with God. We probably remember the first chapter at the very beginning, how Job's life was described by having all these things, having 10 children and so on. Now if we move to chapter 30, now Job looks at his present misery. Of course, he's in the beginning reminded how people are actually now making fun of him. He's become what's called a byword, because God, and he imagines God like as a warrior who kind of, unstrung his bow and afflicted Job. So things are very different now. That's what chapter 30 is telling us. He's telling us about his feelings, about the suffering, and about his bones which are pierced, about the pain and the unrest. But the worst of all in that chapter seems to be the silence of God. In verse 20, chapter 30, verse 20, "I cry out to you, O God, but you do not answer." So chapter 29 is about the blessed past. Chapter 30 is about the present misery. And now we're going to move in chapter 31. And in chapter 31, we have kind of like it's a chapter in which Job, in his last stand, he's going to assert his integrity. And the whole chapter is kind of like a legal oath, basically saying, look, if I have done this, may this happen to me. But I haven't done it, basically. I have done what is right. But the arrangement, if we look very, very carefully, the arrangement has this arrangement, it's kind of like an oath. Anderson calls it as an oath of clearance, right? If I have done X, then let Y happen to me. And I arranged the chapter in such a way as to point out certain sins that he denies. And I'm following here the arrangement of Anderson. So first, in the first few verses, he's going to deny the problem of lust. He's going to say, look, I didn't lust after other women. So let's see how the chapter starts. So the chapter starts like this. Barit karati la'enai. Barit, of course, where they were very familiar with, means covenant. And karat is the verb to cut. But again, just to remind you, to cut a covenant is usually translated to make a covenant. The reason it's using to cut, most likely, is because covenants, when you made a covenant, usually cut and usually sacrifice some kind of an animal. So it might be that might be the idea, the basics of this expression. But in any case, it says, I have made a covenant with my eyes, Uma et ponein al batula. And how, notice ma, we usually translate what, but please be aware that mental ma is better translated how, like here. And how shall I or could I gaze or look upon a batula? And I put for you here a few translations just to have an idea that there are some disagreements. What is batula? Is it a virgin or is it a young woman? So it's a little bit disputed. It probably depends on the context. In any case, the meaning is clear. He's denying the fact that he didn't lust. He didn't lust after other women, and more specifically here, young women. Notice, of course, here the verb is bin. Bin usually means to understand. This is a polel, and then polel actually means to behave intelligently, which makes sense because bin in the kal is to understand. So it's to behave intelligently, but in this particular case with al, and I recommend that you check Psalm 37, with al means to look out for, to gaze probably at. So, how can I gaze upon a young woman? I can't, because I made a covenant with my eyes. And then it continues. Ume chelek Eloa mima'al v'nachalat Shaddai mimaromim. Ume chelek. And what portion of God from above? And the translation says, what is my portion, or what would be my portion from God above, and my heritage, Nachala, of course, the word for heritage in construct, the heritage of Shaddai, from on high. You'll probably recognize here the word, the root of this word is from room, to be high. So that's why, what would be my portion from God above, and my heritage from the Almighty God, from the Almighty on high, Shaddai. Hello, Eid, Le'aval, V'necher, Le'polei Aven, right? What would it be? And then it says, and then he continues, it says, and here notice the interrogative marker, is not calamity for the unrighteous and disaster for the workers of iniquity. So again, I hope you recognize here, this is a kal, masculine plural, construct of pa'al, to do, to work, and it's masculine plural, so basically, literally, the workers of iniquity, or here, like, notice it's in one word, evil doers, the doers of evil, or of iniquity. It's a very similar expression. Aid is not a problem. I would translate it better, disaster, like the HCSB. I think it's better than calamity, but it's rather similar. It's almost like a synonym. The word that is more interesting is necher. And this is a very rare word. In fact, it only appears twice in the Bible, so that's why I recommend that you look at the other occurrence. But the other occurrence is actually in Obadiah chapter 12, verse 12, and I put it for you here. Notice in Obadiah verse 12, V'al teire bayom achicha bayom nochro. So again, the same word necher with suffix. It says here, but do not gloat over the day, you will recognize that the day of your brother, in the day of his misfortune or disaster. And this is again supported by the parallel, because notice here, necher is in parallel with aid, so it recommends a translation similar, like a disaster or calamity. And here we will notice that it's also in parallel with ruin and distress. You may be more familiar with the word distress here, tzara. But this is what we're dealing here. So is not calamity for the unrighteous and disaster for the workers of iniquity? Or doesn't disaster come to the unjust and misfortune to evildoers? And then continues, another question marks, another interrogative sentence. Halo hu ire drachai v'chol tzadai ispor? Does he not see my ways and number all my ways, all my steps? So sapar here to number, and notice again this plain spelling that appears many times, actually interesting in the book of Job, but of course could be without the vav, ispor. So does not he see my ways and number all my steps? In other words, Job is saying, you know what? I'm aware that the wicked are punished. I'm aware that God sees my steps. That's why I made a covenant with my eyes. And I don't want to commit. I don't want to lust after another woman. So Job is aware of all these things, and he's kind of saying, I will not do this because I know that God watches and I care about God, basically. And now he continues with another vow. Now this is more like vow-like. We will see this formula. If, then let this happen to me. Now he's talking about dishonesty. So let's continue and look. Im halachti im shav v'tachash al mirma ragli. Then he says, ishkaleni b'moznei tzedek v'yeda Eloah tumati. Right? So notice here, this is the condition. If I walked, of course everybody recognizes this, Cal perfect, first common singular. If I walked with falsehood, shav, most translates falsehood here, vatachash al mirma ragli, and basically I hasted, from the verb chush, it's a he-feel, and I hasted to deceit. And of course this is my foot, and my foot, actually not I hasted, but my foot hasted to deceit. And then, and this is of course a modal sentence. Notice again the imperfect at the very beginning of the clause. If the imperfect is at the beginning of the clause and it's without a verb, it's a strong indicator that this is a modal. It's a wish expressed. And here of course also the context. Then let me be weighed in just balances, literally in balances of righteousness, but balances of justice. So, of course, the understanding is in honest balances. V'yeda Eloah tumati, and let the God know my integrity. So, as some translate, let God know my integrity. But some translate, that God may know my integrity, or rather might say, then God will recognize. Again, the verb is of course yada, but could be understood also in the sense of recognize. And then God will recognize. But again, just from the parallel and from the position of yada, I think it's better to translate with the ESV. Let me be weighed in a just balance and let God know my integrity. Let God know or let God recognize my integrity. Perhaps better is the idea of recognition. He wishes that God will recognize his integrity, and of course we recognize this root that we see at the beginning of the book, where Job is presented as a person of integrity. He says, "No, I didn't do that. I didn't deal in falsehood, and I wasn't a dishonest person." And then he continues in verses 7 and 8. Im tite ashuri. So don't confuse this with ashrei. This is the word for step, and it says my step. So im tite ashuri mini haderech va'achari nai halach libi u vichapai davak me'um. And then again, if this, then this. Ezra'a va'acher yochel v'tze'tza'ai yeshorashu. Notice what happens here. If my step has turned, of course, this is the verb nata. If nata, just notice the nun is assimilated, it's a cal perfect. If my step has turned from the path, meaning, do not translate from my path. It's simply mini, it's just like the poetical from the path, and another v'acharinai halach libi, and my heart went after another. or after my eyes, no, after my eyes, sorry. And my heart went after my eyes. And if a spot, maum, a spot, but probably better translated an impurity, basically stuck to my hands. If an impurity stuck to my hands, or perhaps basically the idea is if something stained my hands. In other words, my hands are unstained without spot. But if this has happened, then, then let me sow zara and another eat. And, let them be uprooted. Let them be uprooted. Shoresh, of course, it's root, and the verb shoresh, to uproot. Let them be uprooted. What? My tzetzai. My tzetzai. Now the question is, what is tzetzai? And first thing to notice about tzetzai is this from the verb yatsa, to go out, to come out. So basically, it's referring most likely in this context to anything that has grown for me. So anything that grows for me, referring probably to plants or to agricultural projects. So maybe rooted out. Maybe rooted out if this is what I've done. If, again, if I have lived in dishonesty and I've done something impure, let anything that was grown for me, all my produce, let it be rooted out. Again, I notice tze'etzayim. Tze'etzayim, it appears a few times, and usually it's what emerges. Again, from the verb yatsa, what comes out. And it can be used by plants in Isaiah 34:1, and also I put it in Job 31:1, 31:8. Metaphorically, notice it can be used for human descendants. So basically what comes out either from the ground, like in this case, or from somebody's body, like the descendants. But this is what happening here. So Job denies that he was dishonest. Now he continues with the problem of adultery. Now Job is going to tell us, you know what? I also did not commit adultery. And let's look at the sentence here. So we're going to look at these verses, and I think I put the verses here. No, I didn't put the verses, but it's basically from 9 to 12. So notice here. Im niftach libi alisha val petach rei arafti titchan leacher ishti valeha ichraun acherim ki hu zima v'hi avon palilim ki eishi ad avadon tochel uvachol tevuati tesharish. So again, this is a little bit of a larger section, but basically saying this: if my heart was enticed, notice from pata nifal, if my heart was enticed to a woman, assuming the idea is to another woman, and al petach rei aravti, and to the door of my neighbor, or my friend, you could say Rhea, of my friend, Arafti, I lied in wait. Arav, not to be confused with Arav, with ayin, this is with Aleph, basically to lie in wait. To lie in wait at my neighbor's door. And then he says, if I did that, Titchan la'acher ishti, my wife, may she grind for another. But grind, it's something that it's a very lowly job, and if you look at Lamentation 5:13, some people think this has basically sexual connotations. So if I did this, that basically made somebody else humiliate my wife. That might be possible, but that has sexual connotation. But at the minimum, may my wife basically do a very lowly job for another. Va'alecha, but this is very clear here. Va'alecha ichreun acherim. So basically saying, and others may they bow down upon her. So here it's more clear that basically if I did this with somebody else's wife, then may this happen to my wife. So again, notice the translation, and let others bow down on her. The meaning is fairly clear, you know, basically may my wife also suffer the punishment and be humiliated because of what I done. And then he continues and he talks about adultery, kihuzima, because this basically would be a heinous crime or a disgrace, zima, and it would be, and again, it, now using the feminine, avon pelilim, it would be a punished by the judges, or it would be a crime deserving punishment. Avon is very clear, it's a crime, it's an iniquity. Palilima is a little bit disputed, but again, let me just give you the definition here. Palil, again, it's generally understood to be judges, and it's found a few times, for example, in Deuteronomy 32:31. It says that this expression, our enemies are judges. So again, we recognize Oyev. Our enemies, Palilim, are judges. But here in Job 31:11, Kohler and Baumgartner recommend that it either refers to a criminal offense, in other words, an iniquity to be punished, or a sin belongs to a judge, to the judges. Probably, it's probably a crime, an iniquity that requires judgment. So it's a heinous crime that requires judgment. Ki eishi, because it's a fire, it is a fire ad Avadon, until Avadon, and tochel, basically it eats, it consumes until Abaddon. V'chol tevuati tesharesh, this is actually unclear, but literally it would be something like this. In all increase, in all my increase, basically in everything that comes to me, in all my produce, tesharesh, it will be uprooted, or it would burn to the root. This translation. Notice another one. He would destroy my entire harvest. He would destroy my entire harvest. So this is a possible translation, but again, this section is a little bit unclear. It's just not very clear how to understand it for many of the commentators. The verse, however, is fairly clear. This is a very heinous crime, and it's something that is to be punished, and it's something that is it has a destroying effect. So no, I did not commit adultery. No, I did not lust. No, I was not dishonest. And then we are going to continue this. We're going to end this section with Job's denial of oppression. Not only I did not lust, not only I was not dishonest, not only I did not commit adultery, but I also did not oppress anybody. So notice what it says. Im emas mishpat avdi va'amati barivam imadi uma e'eseh ki yakum el v'ki ifkod ma ashivenu helo va'beten oseni asahu va'yachunenu berechem echad. This is actually a very interesting section, not only because of what it denies, but also because of what it affirms. So he's talking, of course, about his servants. So he's basically saying here, if I have rejected, right? If I have rejected mishpat avdi, basically justice for my servant, justice or judgment for my servant, va'amati, so my servant, masculine, and here's my servant, feminine, female servant, barivam imadi, or we could say for my female servant, barivam imadi, literally in their lawsuit with me, right, in their cause. So basically, if I have rejected their justice, right, when they brought a complaint to me, you could translate it, when they brought a lawsuit with me or against me. He continues this, kind of like a parenthesis, Uma ese kiakumea. Then we could translate what I would do. And what could I do when God rises up? Kind of like God rises up to defend them. V'ki quote, and when he visits, literally when he visits, when he makes inquiries, some translate, but it's the idea when he visits. Ma ashivenu, what shall I answer? What shall I turn him? So here, please notice the usage of nu. It's not a first common plural, but it's a third masculine singular suffix. So basically, it literally means, what shall I turn to him? What shall I reply to him? What shall I reply to him, when he visits me and when he rises, by basically to defend, looks like my servants from oppression. And then notice so Job realizes that he is responsible to God, for all kinds of oppression, for anything wrong that he does. Again, it's just very, very useful, this chapter, also to see how Job sees God being in control, and God caring for the poor, caring for the servants, and caring about all these issues. And then he continues, of course, this is an interrogative sentence, Hello vapeten oseini asahu. So basically it's this, literally in the womb, oseini. Oseini, this is an active participle. The one making me made him. The one making me made him. So basically, did he not, we could translate, did he not, the one who made me, also made him in the womb? So this is a very, very enlightening statement here, but let's continue the sentence. Vayechunenu, barechem echad, and one created him in the womb. Very similar expression, but and womb. I think most translate again womb in both cases. It's like a synonym. So notice here we have, of course, the verb kon. It's a polel. Seems to carry the idea of create. And again, just from the parallel with asa, he made me, he created. He created him, he made him, and he created him. So basically, Job is making this just amazing statement. The same God who made me in the womb is the same God who made my servant. In other words, we are equal before God. And because we are equal before God, I would never oppress my servant if he brought a lawsuit against me. In other words, I was fair to my servants. I was fair to those who were below me. I did not oppress them. This is what Job is basically affirming here. He affirms his integrity even in a connection with his servant, male servants and women servants. We will stop here and we will pick it up later in the next section.